Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's get on that because we just kind of started off with a bunch of shit that I can change the title of this too later to like something about what we're gonna be talking
Yeah, do
about.
whatever. I mean, the reality is, it's just the random thoughts I have all the time. But
Yeah.
uh,
Same.
it
Yeah.
happened at work yesterday or 2 days ago. It was after we did our last one, and it's been sparking a thought in my head that we hadn't talked about. Because we've talked about it. Academics, they're kind of a pain in the ass, and speaking
A
as
lot of
one,
them. A lot of them can be. Yeah. And
they can
they
be quite
definitely are.
egotistical, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
that's the
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunate part. But the other reality is that whole, how you look at people. So some ladies had come in, and we were talking at the museum, and they asked me where I was from, and I said, "Oh, I'm from Oklahoma." And the lady said, "You don't have an accent." And I said, "Well, when I'm at work, I have to be a little more academic, so I'm more trained to not speak with an accent at work." And we were discussing it because it's one of those things that
It's it.
people
Really?
always try to put. Yeah, they put. I had a professor tell me, go get a class and learn how not to have an accent. Um,
Uh,
and as
Okay.
much as
Yeah.
y'all give me shit for it, I mean, last time with
No.
you
No.
and Jonesy, you've heard it when it gets
No, no,
bad.
no, no, no. I give you shit, but it's not like a serious. It's
No,
giving you shit.
but
It's
I'm
just busting
saying
your
when
balls.
when I was with Jonesy, it comes out one of those things that once you're around the people. But
Well, it came out with Nate too, and he's from freaking. You
yeah,
know, he grew up a long time in North Carolina, but like he lives in Maryland, has for a long time, and it came out with him too when you were talking. And you come if I'm around people from the South, I'll start getting a drawl. Like it's just kind of a natural thing. But my question to you is like, that's a serious. Like they were actually being serious when they said don't have an accent.
yeah. It was the idea that it wasn't academic. Hello, welcome to my podcast. Today we are going to talk. Which unfortunately I've done it too, where I've gone to a conference and there be some lady, sweet Southern lady, start talking, and she's got a very thick accent, and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, wait a minute, we are the same, Um, but it's one of those things that people don't think about it, and it's like you don't have to be. You can have an accent
Of
and
course,
be
yeah.
academic at the same time.
So
But
do they tell people from Europe not to have an accent if they're presenting at a conference?
right, well, and it's the American perspective that an accent, and I agree. Sometimes, like, there's a difference between whenever I speak academically and like if I go up on stage and like, well, I ain't here for this, but let's talk about the historian's craft. Like, people are gonna look at me weird, right?
Okay, yeah, no, yeah.
But
I,
it was one of those things that like it's a part of it. It's a
but
part of the field.
my question is, what relevance does that base on what your knowledge and what your skills
It
are?
well, the exact same as if like I had a um one of my volunteers, older, right? They were talking at an event and they were talking about tattoos and how tattoos are
Yeah.
unprofessional and that people that have tattoos, yada yada yada. And I said,
Okay.
what if I have tattoos? And like, oh,
Mhm.
okay. I was like, what if I told you I had
Yeah.
tattoos all over my body? They're like,
Sure.
yeah, okay. And I looked at them and I was like,
And yeah, you show it, and then
and
they're
they're
like,
like, what? You have tattoos? I was like, yes, all up and down.
yeah,
Like, yeah, I did. What relevance does that have for my job?
it doesn't.
Absolutely nothing. But to them, it was this idea that it was unprofessional to have tattoos, and it's the same way where people think about, oh, you have to speak a certain way to sound, intelligent. You have to speak a certain way.
Right. And
Um,
that's the thing is like I thought a lot of that had kind of gotten better.
no, it's gotten worse, if
No, that's the thing
anything.
is like what because I mean again like we were talking I'll give you shit because I have a Midwest northern accent whatever. Um, you have a southern accent, a little bit of a southern accent, and then I always give it the sister fucker accent. That's what I always call it.
Yeah,
It's
well,
funny, right?
when me and my brother grew up, we
Mhm.
lived in southern Oklahoma, and then we moved up to northern Oklahoma.
Yeah,
And when we got to school up there, my younger brother is only 18 months younger than I am. Uh,
parents
his
were moving
teacher,
very quickly. Yeah,
his teacher sent him to the speech pathologist because she thought he had a speech problem, and the speech pathologist wrote a note and sent it back with him that said he doesn't have a speech problem, he's just a hick.
Okay. I mean,
and my mom taught there, like taught at the school, which is why we knew what happened. But it was like even just switching parts of the state was quite a difference for some people.
yeah, for sure.
But when
For
we
sure.
grew up, it's one of those things that some people look down on. So the point I'm making is, it's been one of those things that I've always been taught, it's not good. But the reality and what I've learned is that it is actually one of my greatest benefits to doing research, especially in the South. It's
There
the
you go.
best thing I have,
Mhm.
because a lot of people that deal with being historians, like we said, they're academics think in their own bubble. They think, I'm going to go to the library, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to find the research. But no one ever wants to like drive out into the sticks and track down the family members of people or go talk to the communities. And personally, I love that part. So that's what I do here at this job, which is why I think I'm so good at it, is because I don't mind cold calling random people and going to visit them to talk. And
if you talk similarly to them,
oh yeah, and
that wall comes down.
you have to. It's the only way, because a lot of them don't want to deal with academics. But
Right.
I had a friend of mine I would take with me. He was real fun. He had never really like left the city. He'd always grown up there. And I say the city, I'm talking about like Oklahoma City, still not
but it's still
metropolis. But
it's still a city. It's a different.
Yeah. So I used to take him with me whenever I'd go to these small towns to do research, because it cracked me up to watch him have a culture shock every time we visited these places.
Mhm.
And he would always like dress nice, but I said, no, don't do that. Like I'd put on a nice shirt, but I'd put on boots and my blue jeans, and that's how we'd go visit these places. And you walk in, they look at you weird, but as soon as they let that guard down, they'll start opening up and talk about their family and talk about and they want to share it with you, and they want to, they like academics, but they don't like them. So
right, and I get that, because I think and I really had I'm kind of having like an epiphany thing of like, most of the quote unquote academics that I've run across are very one way, right? It's very consistent. It's very similar, and I'm just like realizing this now, like the people that I've met and the ones who weren't were the most successful, in my opinion, right?
mm-hmm.
They were the most successful because it's I am who I am. I know how to do the research. I know what to do, but I'm also not going to try to fit into this weird subculture of what people think are academics. It's like, no, you are, but you don't have to fit into that mold per se,
Yeah, my best example was when I was at UCO, University of Central Oklahoma, and I was finishing up my master's. I was working at the museum on campus, and I found this box of old glass slide negatives, and no one had gone through them. They'd like inventoried them as slide negatives. So I went through, figured out a way to digitize them with my phone. And when I did that, what I found was these are old glass slides of Native Americans and an Indian school, and it says cantonment, and then it says N.E. Foster. So I was like, okay, who is N.E. Foster?
Wait a second, you mean cantonment?
Yeah, well, so
like a base.
Yeah. So it was originally built as a cantonment by the Army, and then it became a town they now call Canton for cantonment.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So in Canton, yeah. So the town is called Canton because of that. Right. It just got shortened. So they built the Canton Indian School. Anyway, it's been torn down. So I'm doing the research and I'm trying to do this, and I realized pretty quickly, like talking to my director at the time. She's like, oh, well, you need to call this historian and see what he can find in the newspapers. I couldn't find who this N.E. Foster is. Couldn't find any info. So she's like, here, call the Oklahoma Historical Society and talk to this guy and this historian. And so I call him, and he's like, oh, yeah, let me do the research. And he pulls up newspapers. And, well, I can only find that N.E. Foster had a photo, photography place in Canton during like 1907 to 1915. But that's it. Like that was the end of it.
Yeah.
And to them, that was the end of it all. Like, well, we can't really do anything.
Dead end. Yeah.
It's a dead end. And I was sitting there and I was like, this says N.E. Foster, Fonda, Oklahoma, Canton Indian School. So it was in Canton. Why don't I just drive to fucking Canton and go ask them?
Yeah.
And so I just didn't go to work one day. I drove my ass to Canton, which is a tiny town. I accidentally drove through it. Like there was a gas station I drove by. I went past the stop sign and it was fucking, I was like, shit, I turned around and I'd gone through the town. So I wandered into the library, but the library was closed. And again, this is where the spot where like most people I worked with, they're like, well, if the library's closed, it's a small town, it doesn't have a librarian, dead end. And I was like, no, this is a small town. This isn't a fucking dead end. So who did I call? I called the city clerk. And the city clerk answers, and it's this sweet old lady, because I'm thinking who in town would know who the librarian is? The city clerk. Yeah. So I call, it's a sweet old lady, and every time I get a sweet little old lady with a southern accent, I lay it on, right? Hello, ma'am. I'm this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm trying to do some research, and the library's closed. Do you know if there's any way I could possibly get in to talk with someone? And she's like, hang on, let me. And calls me back 5 minutes later. I called the librarian. He's coming down to meet you, and they'll let you in about 10 minutes.
Of course, yeah.
Perfect. So they let me in, and then they hand me a book, a local printed Canton history book, and I'm flipping through, and I find Foster. And then I keep going through, and it says Nina Edna Foster. She was a photographer. And I said, it's a woman? Because I was looking for a man the whole time. Yeah, Foster. And I'm thinking, well, how can I find more info on this?
Nina's a Scandinavian kind of name.
Yeah, white settlers in Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I was like, okay. And I looked at the lady that met me, and I was like, do you know it? She's like, Foster. Oh, they own the gas station. You could drive on over there and go talk to them. No. Said, perfect.
Yeah.
So I hopped in my car, drove a whole 200 yards across the street to the gas station. And then same thing. This is who I am. I'm doing research on, and I walk in, I said, Nina Edna Foster. And they're like, Nina? I was like, sure, Nina. And she's like, that's my grandmother. And then we all got to sitting down and talking, and they gave me some more info, right? And I gave them what I had. And that provided all the stuff in the world. And then I get back to the university, and they're like, how did you find this? I was like, I just went and talked to them. Yeah. Like I drove out there and talked to the locals. It's not a big deal. It's a very simple process.
And now that you bring that up, that you're correct, because it's like a lot of academics are stuck in books, and that's it. As far as they go is reading, periodicals, literature, all that shit. And if they can't find anything, it's like, oh, it's dead end. No. A lot of history is talking to actual people who are still around. They might not give you the answer you want or you need, but that's 10 times. It's like
it's more than you had before,
and it's way more, because then you get leads. It's like,
because of that, I called the Cheyenne and Arapaho Nation, and they got me in touch with he's a chief, but he's in charge of education. And then I start talking to him, and I'm showing him these photos I have, and he said, I know that woman. And he gave me her name, and he said, hang on, I have something. And then he brought me these books she had kept, where she had been keeping track of every child that had gone to the Indian school and if they died of disease. Oh, and then he donated them to the museum. So now it's like this experiment had grown, and then I did an exhibit on it. But it all helped and started because I drove out to the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Oklahoma, and stopped in at the local gas station to ask for information. Right. But no one else had thought to do that.
Yeah. And I think that kind of coincides with what we were talking about on one of the previous streams of like, history's all around us all the time. And to think that because something happened 100 years ago or whatever, that it's so far removed from where we're at today is kind of stupid, because it's not that far back. There's still people who have met these people in person and spent time with them, or they'll have, they were given a book at one point, or like they were given something that is a lead for somebody doing research. And it's not 100 years is really not that.
It's not.
not
It's
that
really
long.
not. But it's
Yeah.
also people think that, if you don't talk to these people, they're like, well, I don't want to talk to them. They also don't think about museums. They always think of archives and libraries, and they forget museums exist.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but it's like you need to learn how to talk to the people, because so again, I can throw another one in. When I was doing the other 16, there was the other author, James Nelson. By all accounts, he was kind of a prick to the family when they called, or when he tried to call them and get information from them.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't want to work with him. But I called and took a different approach, and they opened up the doors and gave me all the research that I needed to write the book. And you have to learn, like you have to learn how to do research, you have to learn how to write, you got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to learn how to work with people from all walks of life.
Exactly. Yeah.
But again, if you look down on certain groups, then you're never going to get anything, or you're never
Mm-hmm.
going to find the people you need.
Yeah.
I've gone to weird, sketchy places all the time just to go find something, and it always works out because I know how to approach it. But when I took my friend, he'd always be like weirded out that we're in Holdenville, Oklahoma, and I'm walking through an antique store trying to question the guy working there to show me where so and so live in town, so I can go over there and visit, and blah 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 blah.
It's basically like I think we were just talking personally the other day, but like it's sleuthing is what it is, and you're not trying to solve a crime, or it's not as time sensitive as like something in the criminal justice system, but it's the same concept of like, if you don't actually talk to people, you're probably gonna think you hit a dead end.
Mm-hmm. And that's always going to be a big one for you, is you never know what people know.
Mm-hmm.
Doing my dissertation, calling all these different individuals, family members, and they all have a different part of the story, and you're trying to piece it together. So that's like one of those big, like, what do historians do? Mm-hmm. Part of it is talk to people. Go figure out where this research is and get the information you need. Don't be a prick about it, like you own it, like it's just because you're an academic doesn't mean you are entitled to someone else's information.
Correct.
And a lot of people I know did that. They approached it that way, and then people didn't want to work with them, and then they come back like, I don't know why he doesn't want to work with me. I was like, probably because you're being a dick.
Right.
Have some humility. Honestly, I play the dumb newbie all the time, and it really gets people comfortable, and like they'll help me more that way. You know how many archivists I had give me free stuff, like scan stuff for free, because I call and play the simple level research. Like, I don't know, but I'm a grad student. I'm just trying to figure this out. People want to help you, but if you call and be like, hey, I need this, can you get it? Get it to me tomorrow.
Yeah,
like,
right.
They're not going to help you. But if you call and you're nice about it, they'll be like, yeah, no problem. Let me scan you that real quick.
Well, it's also like, people are busy and all that stuff and whatever. Like when when we were last year in Ohio, and you and I were sitting there talking, you suggested that I should talk to Don, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's a lot of work. I don't know if he's gonna, because it is uncomfortable, like talking to people you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like I just one day called him because you gave me his number, and I was like, okay. And then we started talking and everything. That went great, and I learned a lot. And it's like, here's the thing, that when you're talking about all this, like, be able to just be relatable. The reason, if you know about Soviet history and Russian history, Lenin, very educated, very well-to-do, good stuff, but he also knew how to talk to the quote-unquote peasant class in their kind of like vernacular and all that stuff like that. And that's why they're like, oh, I trust this guy. I'm relaxed. I feel good. Like I believe in this idea because he's making sense and blah, blah, blah. And he's willing to come out here and actually sit down and talk personally. Well, you get a lot more information and just kind of influence that way.
You got to find a way to connect. That's the whole point,
Well, that's the thing. You've told me a lot of times, like, you're like, yes, I connected with this family of this person that I'm doing research on, and now they just won't fucking stop sending me shit. They're just like, hey, and I'm like, well, it's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem, but you have to do it. And I saw the comment with Brendan, find more photos of a Civil War relative. Do it. Call your cousins that you've never met. Tell them how you're connected and see if they have them, because the originals are out there somewhere. And my brothers and I, my dad always says it's what he taught us. But my brothers and I, we're the most different people ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm always been the fucking nerd. My other brothers, they're cops, they're detectives, agents, yada yada.
Yep.
But we're all very good at getting people to do what we want them to. In a way, like we all have different ways of doing it. I'm able to talk my way into any situation. My brothers can talk their way into any situation. Yep. But what we learned is it's so simple that people think, well, I'm nervous about talking. If you can find one simple thing, by the way, that didn't mute. You're connected still, so you just.
Am I still on the fucking?
Yeah. If you can find one thing to connect with somebody,
yes,
those you will drop all of their issue. They will talk to you, and we do it all the time. Oh, hell, what are like these people I met the other day? I said I was from Oklahoma, and they're like, oh, we love. They said we love Blake Shelton. I said I grew up, well, that's fair. But they're like, we love him. And I was like, oh, I grew up in the same town, like Ada. That's where I was born. That's where he's from. And they're like, what, really? And that's the weirdest way to connect. But
you find commonality, and then you can go.
You go from there.
And it's not that hard unless you have like crippling. Which I do have social anxiety. Like I have it, but like. At a certain point, you go, well, what I want to figure out is more important, and what I want to do is more important than a little issue I have, And it's like,
you gotta get over yourself, because you're trying to. And I get that all the time when I cold call people. They're like, "Who is this?" They're always typically hostile, especially with my phone number. It's an Oklahoma phone number, so they think I'm a telemarketer.
Hello, this is James from Oklahoma.
Yeah, but they call me and they're like, "Who? What do you want?" I'm like, "Oh, this is what I'm doing." But if you say you're interested in like learning from them, they're always happier to talk with you. And it's a hell. I found once it was a celebrity, like Bruce Boxleiter. I called him and he's like, "How did you get my number?" I was like, "Fucking white pages." Like it was easy.
Yep.
But it's just you have to do it. My old director I had years ago loved just assigning me to call people, because she didn't want to deal with random people, but she knew I would. So I would just cold call anybody and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got really good at just, you call, what's the worst they can say?
Yeah, fuck off.
Piss off and hang up on you. Okay, I'm just going to call your fucking cousin, which I've done. Or people are dicks to me. I go find their family members and I call them. And then they like me, and they end up either like going around them or convincing their cousin to stop being rude. So you have to be a people person, but you have to be willing to go outside that box to do stuff. Or they'll be like, well, I have it, but it's in a box somewhere. I'm like, I can help you look. If you need help, I'll come help. I did see someone commenting about Oklahoma making it a rule you have to have a Bible in every classroom. So I will tell you, as someone who taught in Oklahoma, as Oklahoma makes these rules, they like to make them, and a lot of us just like to do malicious compliance. So when they started doing the like, you can't teach race theory, we didn't teach race theory. We just kept teaching it, but we're like, we're going to talk about the worst possible things that we can like find in Oklahoma history and discuss them in a way that only like deals with a simple perspective. So like for the Bible thing, if I was still in Oklahoma, I'd say, okay. And if I had to teach the Bible, I would teach like the worst parts of the Bible. And then if they complain, I'm still following the rule. Right. Mm-hmm. So you can do malicious compliance. They did it one year. They put up a statue of the 10 Commandments in front of the Capitol building. And
in Oklahoma?
Yeah. And this was just a few years ago. And then they had to take it down. But then the state said, no, it stays because it's not religious. It's up there because it's a legal code. But because it was religious in nature, they couldn't argue when they put up a satanic church monument next to it.
Oh, okay. I did read about this. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Again, malicious compliance. Yep. Okay, fine. And so people always, malicious compliance is, Oklahoma passes these rules, but no one follows them. It just makes
the thing is, I think people on a broader scale think that because a state or some whatever level it is with the government entity passes something and it's law now, that A, it's going to be enforced. It's like, who the fuck's going to enforce that? And B,
well, a lot of us haven't really we refused to follow the rule because we wanted to get in trouble, because then it could be a lawsuit and then they'd have to take it to the court and it would never hold up in court.
And then the thing is, like, it's just it's really what it is. It's not, malicious compliance. It's resistance to something that you don't agree with, and whatever, you do that, and you're free to do that. And but the fact that when people say, well, it's a law now, it's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean it's right.
It's a fucking law that you can't eat a hamburger while walking on the sidewalk on a Tuesday in Oklahoma, but that doesn't fucking matter.
Well, I'm going to do that then.
Yeah. So,
and
hell, Louisiana passed it that we had to, I think they have to, what is it? What has to be in our classrooms? There's something in Louisiana they did. I don't know if it was the 10 Commandments or something like that. Point is, malicious compliance. But a lot of this material, and it plays to, I have to deal with it. Politics actually plays into this. People will start trying to talk politics, and I've learned how to avoid the conversation and just be like, yeah, that's wild. And then I just don't ever give them a perspective. Or if anything,
it's called gray rocking.
Yeah. Or just agree. Just agree with them and then move on.
It's called gray rocking is when you either, gray rocking is literally just, you provide responses that are so benign and so fucking nobody can tell that it's boring, and then they're like, well, this person's not reacting to this the way that I want, so I'm just gonna move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I don't ever deal with politics. My big rule is I don't talk politics. But if I'm at someone's house and we have to do research and I just want them to, trust me, just fucking agree. Just agree with. If you don't agree with them. All right, because you're gonna leave and never worry about it again.
Yeah, and it doesn't actually fucking matter in your life.
And what good would an argument be in that moment? There's not.
No, and also because nobody's mind's getting changed, you're gonna create tension unnecessarily. And it's like that's why I unless I actually give, like, if I'm talking actual politics with somebody, which I usually only do in person, that means that I actually really give a shit about you and I just want to know what you think. Otherwise, to me, politics is so fucking boring. The whole subject, the whole idea of it, it's boring. And it's like, if people start,
my favorite answer is simple. I'm a historian. Give me 20 years and then we can talk about it.
Sure. Yeah.
That always shuts them up and throws them off.
Exactly. Well, but it's true. It's very true. That's why
is. I'm a historian. 20 years, we can talk about it.
20 years.
But today's politics, I'm 20 years in the past. All right.
It's just so fucking boring and it's a distraction. It's like, I don't understand how people can get that fucking fired up. Well, I mean, I do understand it's kind of a hyperbolic statement, but like, I do it, but it's like, I mean, how is that going to improve anyone's life?
It's not. And that's the other thing. I deal with all the time. They're like, why would you do that? I'm like, did it hurt me? No. In the moment? I'm just here for the research. Like, I don't give a shit if I agree with their politics or not.
Right.
My job is this. My goal is this.
Well, even if you do agree with the politics, it's like, that's not relevant to what the goal of this whole thing is. Like,
relevance is key. So if you learn how to be a people person, right? That's the big one. Learn how to play the game. Learn your audience, which is the big one. How do you relate to them? You know, you can find any, hell, when I moved down here, I went and had dinner. A friend of mine, his girlfriend, fiance now, is from Louisiana. So he was in town and he invited me to meet her family. This is my first time meeting like good old Cajun family, right? And they're wild. I'm trying to fit in. I don't fit in. But then one of them brings out like this bag of peppers that they grew. And they're like the weirdest hybrid, spiciest things. And they're eating them. And they're trying to convince us to eat them. And so Logan, you know, he's marrying into the family. So like he can't be seen as a bitch. So he takes a little bite. And I mean, his mouth is burning. And they look at me and I said, you know what? I'm not a bitch. And I ate the whole thing. Because the reality is you take one bite or the whole thing, it's the same thing. I ate the whole pepper. And they said, you didn't want to do that. And then, of course, then everyone started laughing.
Are you stealing my fucking story from Iraq? Is that what you're doing?
No, it was the greatest. It broke the tension. Like everyone automatically, I was cussing. I was mad. They were cracking up. They were giving me drinks and food. But then after that, after he went back to Oklahoma, I've been invited to every family event they have. Yeah. Where they're like, invite your friend. But it was something so simple as to just earn their trust and become part of it. Like, all right, you're in now.
Yeah, exactly. Because that story is like very similar. Because like when we were in Iraq, there was a time period for like a few weeks in the summer 2009 where there was a bunch of Turkish contractors that were building a bunch of shit infrastructures. Those guys worked their balls off in the fucking hot sun. Mm-hmm. And my job and a couple of my friends' jobs were to rotate out and like we had to be their escort because we worked in a prison, right? So it was like we wanted to make sure they weren't passing the guys, anything, blah, blah, blah. So long story short, when it came to be lunchtime, I didn't realize how like serious this was. And I'm sitting out in the sun and everything, and then they're in a mortar bunker, right? And it's out of the sun and everything. And they're like, the language barrier was legit. Oh, yeah. There was, I mean, we were talking with hand signals and tones. We couldn't understand. I don't speak Turkish. They don't speak English, right? But they go, you know, like the hand, like, come here. And I was like, I'm good, you know. And they're like, and the guy comes out. He goes, you need to come in here. Like all the English he knew. It was just like basic. So go in there, and they had this fucking spread. I didn't realize this. They had this spread of just this amazing looking food, and I'm like, oh God, that looks good. And then they start passing it to me, and then we get to a plate of peppers. After we're whatever, and nobody speaks the same language. And then I did the same fucking thing. I went, and as I'm biting in, they go, ah! Like, they're putting their hands up, and I just went, oh, yep, that's fucked. But I can't show weakness.
No, you couldn't show weakness. You can't show weakness to the people that like the pepper.
Exactly. And so I sit there and I just go, and then I'm like, oh, fuck. And then because Iraq is very dry, so you don't really sweat. You don't feel yourself sweating. I was pouring sweat immediately. And I'm just like, I mean, the pepper did taste good, to be fair. And I was just like chewing it in my mouth. I'm fucked. And I just sat there, and they were all like, doing that whole thing. And I'm just like, and I went, oh, fuck. I'm like, this is so fucking hot. Oh, please. And then they start laughing. They give me this like orange drink in a can that had like orange pulp in it. It wasn't orange juice. And they're like, here, this will help you. And they popped it for me. And I'm just like, oh, it does help, but after that, it was like, we were cool. Like,
you have to break the bubble, find some way to do it.
But sometimes it takes pain.
It does. But if you can do it, I mean, and I do it all the time. Either like when people come up, they have kids. Like I'll talk to the kids. That gets people to talk. If you find it. So that's one way that like it's a big key for historical work. Is if you can get people involved, your life is going to be a lot easier.
And it doesn't really take much.
It doesn't. But it's amazing what you can find.
Yeah.
And even just interest. So it's like that's a big one that I've always worked on is the people thing. But the other ones, trying to learn like what exactly do we do? The simple one, read books, look in archives for sources. But the other key is like you have to take it a step further if you want to be a good historian. Mm-hmm. Like think about, well, where do archives get stuff? Right? They get it from the people. So you need to find ways to figure out where the stuff is. If you're researching a guy, see if he's got any living relatives and call him. Most people won't do that. That's too much work. That's not easy.
Well, it's a lot of work, but it's also in my very little experience of like being an actual historian, like it's also be patient. That's what I've noticed. Is like you're not always gonna have a win. We'll just put it that way.
But
but here's the thing: that's not a
lucky.
dead end. That's not a dead end. It just means that right now, okay, and I'll figure it out later, because there's been a lot of things that I've talked to people on where it seems like a dead end, and I'm like, fuck. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, you're like, you think about something in a different way, and you contact somebody, and it's like, oh well, shit. Now it's here. Bam. Okay, now
I do research on my great aunt. You know, the World War I had no info, and then I find eventually one night like a comment on a page about a woman, and I'd finally figure out her name. So then I look up like a phone number, and I call her, just random woman, and we start talking. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I have some stuff. I'll send it to you." She sends me a box, and in it, because Cora had her whole band with her, is one of the women, Ida, who grew up with her. She kept three handwritten journals covering their entire trip to France, and a scrapbook with photos and documents from their entire trip in World War I. So automatically it opened up the world to my research.
Yep.
And then the woman unfortunately passed away 2 months later. So I happened to catch her at the right time.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
And get the material from her that helped me tremendously. And that's happened a lot, you know, but it's again talking to families and building trust. And then then you go through, you know, that book. So where do you go from there? I mean, shit, my master's was written with 90% of stuff I got on eBay because there was no archive that had this. So I had to just buy things. And then I started talking to collectors to try and get documents, and learned about working with collectors and reenactors, because sometimes you'll find info that they have that no one's considered.
It's very
true.
You
know, so it's like you have to think outside the box if you want to be a good historian.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I think we were talking about this the other night, is a lot of places will hire somebody with a history degree, because it's not about the names and dates. That's not history. That's part of it. But like
analytical work.
Yeah, and it's but it's more about like how you're able to compile and like investigate things.
Critical thinking is amazing as like something people need. And I never really think, to me, critical thinking makes sense. But it wasn't until I got into teaching that I realized that people have no critical thinking skills.
Right. And if they do, they're very, very, very like just
that. It's what separates the people that are very good from the people that are just normal.
Well, also critical thinking is very uncomfortable. And that's why I think a lot of people avoid it, because it is, because you have to question literally everything, and that's not easy to do, you know?
Well, and some of it's like, so two of the things I really hound, and one of them I learned from this AHA magazine, but it's the word called the presence of absence. So like, it's the idea that what isn't there is just as important, if not more, than what is there. You have to teach your brain not to look at what you're seeing, but to look at what you're not seeing. Right. So it's so let's say this. So their lesson was something on like photographs of slavery, right? Like, what are you not seeing here?
Which part of the world when?
Yeah. But the point of it is, like, if I show you an image, the students will be like, oh, actually, I can do this. Hang on, let me pull up a photo, and I can show you exactly how I taught this for critical thinking. Hang on. And we'll see how good you can do. Where are you? there's the image. Okay, so I'm going to pull up this image and present screen.
I'm trying to get this the neck to
Oh, yeah,
crack.
I hate that when it happens.
Time. It's like, it's just, if that one
Okay.
pop would happen. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. You see the image?
Yeah, let me full screen this. All right. General store. Ontarian. Office.
So when I teach critical thinking,
yeah,
I tell them, here's your image. Tell me all the information. Tell me, where is this taken? When is it taken? Where is the building? What is the building? What is around the building? Go. So let's just start with the easy. Where is this taken, Mike?
I don't know. I do know that window appears to be broken up. No, okay. So hold on. There's a reflection in that window of a very tall building behind them. So that would indicate this is not a film set.
No, we're talking, I want you to go biggest to smallest. I always go big to small, right?
Big, so, it's a front-facing store that would put itself
bigger. I'm asking you, where was this photo taken?
In the United States.
All right. Now we're going to go one step smaller.
Yeah.
And wait. And so there's that. You say United States. Why? Why? I think the question why is the biggest thing to get people to realize critical thinking. So why do you know it was taken in the United States?
I don't know, but I would assume because of the fact that the structure that's presented here in this photo is similar to structures of that same.
Okay, but there's some much more glaring things right in your face.
Well, confectionery is spelled in the United States way, the Montanian.
It's in English, first off.
Right? No, but it's it's in American English.
Yeah, exactly. Everything you're reading is in English. So we can automatically assume it's got to be American or English. We are looking at it in the American spelling, right? So we know, again, this is like things that are the other part of critical thinking. Things that are obvious to you, you need to start recognizing because they're really obvious. You don't think about it, but you need to force yourself to think about the obvious, right? So United States, okay. Let's go one step smaller. Where in the United States?
Montana.
All right, because of the Montanian and because it says Montana Stagecoach.
Well, also the butte on there is very specific to that part of the country. Yeah.
Okay, so where in Montana? The answer is I know you won't be able to do it. So how would you find out where it is?
Office of Montana something company.
Montana Stage Company.
Stage Company. Okay.
Right.
I can't see the T.
So the Montanian, right? We see that sign. And then what's on the door?
Printing office. So it's a newspaper.
Okay. So then if we want to know where in Montana this newspaper is, we're going to like Google it, the Montanian, Montana, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I can't think off the top of my head. This is my the guy in front of the printing office is my great uncle. But it's in Montana. I can't remember which town. Okay. So we know it's in Montana, right? Mm-hmm. So then the next question, when was it taken?
Around 1920 is my best guess.
All right. Well, it was taken in 1870.
All right. I was going to say give or take 10 years, but yeah, that's further back.
Again, how do we do it? And this is one of the things I tell my students. Like, it's okay to pool all of your knowledge from every source. So if I showed you this image in a TV show, what era would you think it is?
Wild West.
Exactly. All right. Yep. Wild West is when?
Yep.
The 1870s.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's perfectly fine to say it looks like the Wild West because you're right. And we know this because we're looking at the clothing. They're all wearing boots. They're all wearing large ties.
The guy on the left, I guess, to me, the kind of like half-assed trilby.
Yeah, the bowler hat.
That became popular later, but it was still around them. So
yeah,
I got distracted on that one little tiny detail.
But then we're also like the structure, the building. It's Wild West. This is the West. It's quintessential West, right? Okay, so that's the where, that's the when, the what we already covered. It's the newspaper, the Montanian.
They also sell a bunch of other shit that's not related to printing. Because
the other half is the confectionery.
Yep.
So where in town is this taken, would you think?
I would say downtown because of the buildings on the side of it.
Okay. Also completely fair. Brick buildings. Then I'd say, what's across the street?
A big building that I can see in the reflection of the windows.
So if we're talking 1870, a big building with something on top.
Church, yeah.
So now we can say for a fact that this building was across from the church.
Yeah.
My favorite little detail. Do you know what this brick building is to the right?
No, I don't.
It was the saloon. You can see the cards and glass from the night before.
Oh shit! Okay, yeah. You're right. Yeah.
All right. So we got cards and shit strewn out about. So
yeah. Okay.
It's exactly that. This is a photo you knew nothing about, but you're able to use critical thinking to tell me now that we know this photo was taken in whatever town in Montana in the 1870s, give or take. And it was across from the church and next door to the saloon. And we got all of that from just gleaning what we could critically think about this. So the next few steps would be, well, what is the Montanian? Who created it? Can we find photos of those men?
Yep. Is anybody still alive who's related to them? Yeah.
Exactly. And I can tell you this is Mueller Merlin Corson. He served in the 7th Infantry in Montana from 1873 to 1877.
Yeah.
Right at the heart. And during the Battle of Little Bighorn, his company was assigned to stay back and guard the fort. But this is a great photo to make you think, right?
Well, that's like we've done, and I think you've seen that. And I think you participated in a couple of the military history and analysis, because I'll notice a few things, somebody else will notice a few things, and then we can.
Why are you so dark? Turn your light back on.
Oh, it got dark. I mean, okay. Turn my light on with my fine bud. Yeah,
it's creepy.
No, it just got dark.
You have to learn, and we can do it all the time with World War I postcards, right? How do you date them? Easy, flip it over. Is it in English? Okay, then it was taken in the United States. Is it written in French? Then it was probably taken in France.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing on it, it was taken in Germany because they didn't.
Well, and it also goes down to like because I think you and I were talking, like, we're nerds, right? And we'll notice things because of the stupid amount of time we've researched on things. But like what you're doing right now is, because here's the thing, is I was already overthinking it.
Yeah, right? You were. That's the issue. You will always overthink it. You have to.
I'm overthinking it immediately, and then when you said just bring it back to this basic analysis thing, I'm like, and that's why we do the military history photo analysis of like what time period is this based on the gear and like whatever you see. Okay, and then it's the same kind of principle and the same kind of idea, but like even I was just doing it right here with that picture. I'm like overthinking.
You have to train your brain to look at every detail, but from the most obvious thing. I'll bring it to class and say this answer. They won't say the most obvious thing because it's obvious. It's obvious to all of us. But you have to say it. You have to make your brain understand it, because how are you going to explain it? And also, how does it help you with clues on what it is? You know, my professor used to do that to us all the time. He'd bring random things and he'd be like, here, go do research and tell me what this is. And it's like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Or if anything, figure out your best guess. Yeah. Like what's the extreme part that you can figure out? And it becomes I'm trying to think of the presence of absence, some other good ones we would talk about. It'd be like, so when we talk about the Indian schools, we use a newspaper. They'd talk about Native children, but they wouldn't talk about white children. So it's like, what are they not talking about? Why would they not say it? Right? Or what are they saying that makes you understand how they think? So it'd be like they're talking about Native American children and their costumes. And it's like, obviously they're not putting any thought into Native American cultural dress, because to them it doesn't matter. But it's those words you have to catch and say, oh, hang on, that is obviously a good signal of something, you know.
Right.
That's a good detail to understand. It's a very important. Oh, presence of absence. This is the one I was always doing. Emancipation Proclamation. All slaves in the South are free.
In the South, yes.
What is not present in that statement?
The ones in the North?
The North. So it freed nobody, because the North, slaves in the North weren't free. And guess who's not listening to the federal government? The South. So the document does nothing. But it's that idea that you don't consider, well, wait a minute, what about the other side? What about the other half? Right?
Right.
The presence of absence is important.
Yeah, it is. And then the funny thing, like when you get like in the actual history, is like when you go down and what we're doing right here, right now in this conversation is like, okay, the Emancipation Proclamation. What is the most common response you get if that's ever brought up in like any conversation?
What freed the slaves? The Emancipation Proclamation.
Good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. It freed the slaves. It was very powerful. Whatever. It's like, okay. And have you read at the same time? I forget the name of the fucking document. It's terrible. But it's when they were quote unquote freeing the serfs in Russia. At the same fucking time, that was like a 15 page document explaining exactly how everything's going to work and all that stuff. The Emancipation Proclamation, 3/4 of a page, tops.
Well, the other part of it too is whenever we talk about the Civil War, what's the presence of absence? If you ask the students, what was the North fighting for? Free the slaves. Presence of absence. When did they start considering freeing the slaves?
Right.
Not until 2.5 years into the war when they were losing.
Correct.
Then that became a topic. But that doesn't get talked. It's the absence of that discussion. You have to.
You know why? It's because it makes certain people uncomfortable. They make us think about it, and then it becomes societally acceptable to just go, well, we don't think about that part of it, because that's
it's that's a part of it with some people, but the reality is it's just how people think. If they're not taught they're taught the basic history, and the basics don't cover it. So you have to, if you're doing history, you're going beyond the general knowledge. But the first step to being able to go beyond general knowledge is to force yourself to say, wait a minute, I have to think of the bigger picture here. And I'll give, that photo, I'll give it to students. Well, there's nothing I can do here. Yes, there is. There's a million things you can talk about here.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't give me the answer. Yeah, no shit. Go figure it out yourself.
Like how tall was your ancestor?
Yeah,
you can tell because of what the structure, the typical fucking size of a door back then in that part of the country. You can within about an inch, you can go, yeah, he was 5'8" or 5'7".
Yeah,
based on this and all that shit from that picture alone.
You can find, and we've talked about it before. Like, there's a million things you can do. If I were to pick on a museum, right? We did this. Here's some dog tags.
Yeah.
Everyone would just be like, they're dog tags. But to me, it's like, I could use them as an exhibit on dog tags. I could use it as an exhibit on the guy who belonged to these. I could do an exhibit on the unit he served with. I could do an exhibit on the ship he sailed overseas on. I could do an exhibit on the state he's from. Right. I could do an exhibit on World War I in general. There's a million ways to use something if you can think outside the box. And that's the only way you're going to find something, is if you think outside the box. It's the only way to be different.
And also,
but it's hard for people.
And yeah, and another thing that's hard is that I think since I've been into history, it's been like kind of a common thing where people just if anything related to history, they'll do like they'll learn one thing, and then that's just the way it is, and that's how they tell other people it's the way it is, and it kind of perpetuates itself into like that, keeping it at the basic bitch level, like the absolute surface level of things. I'm not conveying this well. So like, okay, we'll talk about Normandy. What do you think of when you think of Normandy? Really, like, right quick.
Right,
First
D-Day.
Yep, there you go.
Omaha Beach.
Yep, Omaha Beach. Yep, and then it's somebody
why?
will,
because of Saving Private Ryan. Because every video game I played as a kid also used Saving Private Ryan, so they only ever did Omaha Beach.
But that's the level that I'm talking about. Is like it's very okay. Yes, I'm aware, and like I'm aware of that something happened in Normandy in 1944, right, from this movie, and then that seems to get all the attention. Is that basic kind of thing, and it's like yeah, and
you want to see
there's a lot more layers. Yeah,
presence of absence. I just remembered about. Here's a photo of Corson and his family. Okay, a mustache, right?
Here, let me. Oh yeah, nice.
Okay, what is missing from this photo? Oh, and Shoto. Shoto's where it was.
Yeah.
So again, here's another way. Oh, you found a photo of the family and it was taken in Shoto? Well, that's probably where the Montanian was.
Right, but like,
what's missing in this photo? What's missing is his native son, Charles.
Yeah, but how would you know that?
Because he got shipped off to Carlisle Indian School.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't. That's the thing. You have to think like, okay, but
Can you pull a picture up the last one really quick. Yeah. Just pull that up.
My angle was doing research on Charles, so I knew when I saw that photo, I was like, wait a minute, where the fuck is he? Like,
yeah,
he's not there. But you wouldn't know that.
You have to. There'd literally be no way of knowing unless you've gone above and beyond on that topic, and you go, wait a second. But that's the thing is, like, most people, it's a picture. Like, to me, it's a picture of a family. You built a picture up of, or
this one?
You just didn't. Okay, there it is. Yeah, sorry. Being a boomer right now. So that
is Carlisle Indian School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and he's wearing military rank
because Carlisle is run by Captain Charles Henry Pratt, who formed it as a military school to basically eradicate all native traditions. His slogan is "Kill the Indian, save the man." So he's Americanizing the student, so forcing them into a military routine.
Huh. Because, okay, I'm just looking around. Okay, so my interpretation of this photo is I can tell when it was taken before, like before a certain date. I don't know who he is.
Right.
There's a big mess to clean up. I can tell that. And that's my surface level of like my initial analysis.
Right. Let me do a good one that took me a minute to do. Oh, there's Sherlin when he's younger. Oh, wait, no. Maybe it's this way. Hang on. Here it is. All right. I was trying to figure out what this photo is.
The flaming arrow to what?
Tonight.
So all right. Crossed over. Okay, so it looks like whoever's on the horse is obviously in, some older school ceremonial dress. Flaming Arrow tonight. He'd probably be the Flaming Arrow. There's an attraction coming. They're trying to make money. This guy's doing that. There's like the band. That guy's holding a trombone, and a bugle, or not a bugle, not a trumpet, and then that's a baritone. So there's a band there, right?
Yeah. So I had
they're
this
promoting
photo,
something in a small town somewhere in the U.S.
I had no idea what it was, and then I started trying to figure out where Charles was. So then I looked up the Flaming Arrow, and it turns out Charles was one of these buglers, and he performed with a show on vaudeville called the Flaming Arrow. So this is a photo of them promoting the show he was in. But it took me a while to figure that out.
There's also a trolley in the back of that picture.
Yeah. So I hadn't looked at it up close at all. So it's like a lot of these things that you really have to think about what is not there in order to figure out what is the important part of the discussion.
Sure. And that's a lot of the times easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's an awesome point, and it's very, it's very true.
I've got another fun one that I like to do. I was so excited when I figured this out. Let me figure out where this.
I think I'm fucking red as shit on this lighting. Like I have the old school Edison bulbs.
Yeah.
So, but I'm looking at my face. I'm like, am I burning up? No.
Let me show you one from my dissertation that is fun. And when I figured it out, I was fucking pumped. All right.
Fucking pumped.
Shut up. You'll see. Better make sure I'm doing this right. Okay. You see it?
Yep.
Okay, so I knew that my great aunt and my grandmother were at the 1915 World's Fair, and they played CG Con instruments. And I knew that the state of Oklahoma celebrated Cora Youngblood Corson Day, and I knew that the CG Con company did too. But I can't find any records because the con company's building burned down 3 times, so all the documents are gone. But then I found this photo, and I started looking at it and started to see if things could catch my eye, to see if they were really promoting my grandmother and my aunt. All right. So can you really tell any information from this photo? I mean, it's grainy, it's black and white. Can you tell anything?
G-Con Incorporated. There's a number on the bottom left. I don't know what the
right.
Is. Medals awarded. So, yeah, it's a store and everything.
Yeah, but we can't. Can you make out any of the photos in the background?
Not really.
Okay. So I was looking at this thinking, okay, this doesn't really help me, does it? How do I use it? And then I'm looking at the windows. I'm like, well, there's photos. These are probably like CG Con celebrities, right? People that they're proud to promote. This is at the World's Fair. That means these people would probably be very important people to the company, right? So then I'm looking, I'm like, well, you can't really make anything out. And then I'm looking at these photos and I think, wait a minute, this blur looks familiar to me. All right. So you see this blur?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
All right. You see that? You're getting a good look at it?
Shit. So
No, I did. Yep. Okay. Hang on.
Yep. It's okay. Sweet Jesus.
Doing it for a reason.
Yeah. Okay.
This photo is a postcard version, but there's a yard long version of it, right? It's my great aunt in all her forms, right? Especially the one you see here on the side.
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I can push that to the side and pull it. Can I pull them both up? Can you see both?
Oh, no, I can't see both. Nope.
Son of a bitch. StreamYard pisses me off sometimes.
I'll
just share my whole screen. Okay. Share my screen. And then the photos. Oh, shit.
Okay.
So if you're looking at that, the squiggles, you see the one on the right? It's that photo. And then when she's sitting, same pose, same darkness. There's the one with the cello. So this is a photo of my great aunt promoting her band. It's a different version, but these shapes are obvious when you compare them.
Nope. No.
I know. It takes a minute looking at it, but
it's not. They're similar.
I know, it's a different image, but again, I can pull up this photo and this photo. Like they had different versions, but this one right here is the cello. You see the white of a body, the dark head, and then bulb and a bulb of what looks like a cello.
In this particular picture that you have, the left side photo is.
I know, that's what I'm saying. There's several versions of the yard long. This is the version I have, but I've seen other copies that have her whole band in the middle and then her face on the far left.
Okay.
But the three that are the same are this one on the far right, the one where she's on the chair with the sombrero, and then the one with the cello. And then the one in the middle is a group photo, and the one on the left is a single photo.
Yeah. And the resolution, like
I know resolution does not help, but the point is, when you're looking at it, you can make the argument for these shapes to show that she's so popular that she was displayed right in front of their entire showcase at the World's Fair.
Oh yeah, I'm doing the photograph because it's like, back then it was viewed differently. It was like, this is going to be a forever thing. Everybody's going to look at this. It's going to be great, and so to take a photograph back then was expensive and very time consuming. So it's like, we're going to make this count in every way possible. And they would
right.
But
so you got to really think just weird ways to make things work.
Yeah. And like with that, I wouldn't feel confident enough to like be able to confidently say that like that is the same.
Oh yeah. I've stared at her photo enough times that I can be like, no, that's 100% her shadow. Like I know that shape.
Sure, but yeah, that's and then the thing is like I just in that one I was sitting there, I was like actually looking, and I'm like,
if I went through and took a pencil and outlined the shapes, you'd be like, oh okay, but it's one of those things that like weird details that can be there that most people would overlook.
Oh yeah.
You have to catch them. There was one where they gave me a photo and I was like, oh, that was taken on June 6, 1918, and they're like, how'd you know that? It's like, because I have one that's dated the same day and she's wearing those same socks.
But also, what are the odds? I mean, let's be honest here. What are the odds that you're going to know and be able to like, now most people. So, I mean.
Exactly. But the odds are that, but you get lucky. I mean, what were the odds that I was going to find a photo album on eBay that turned out to belong to the very first Nez Perce native to join the AEF?
Not that high, but if also you're in a niche kind of world as far as buying and selling things, it's like that increases your odds, but still the odds are very small. Like there's certain things that you probably have never found that you've wanted to, and it probably exists, but it just fucking whatever. So you win some, you lose some, and sometimes you just get straight up just lucky, like you did with that photo album. Like because somebody else didn't know what it was, like most people probably, and you were like, "Oh well, I know what this is."
Yeah, it's obvious to me.
And then you bid on it, and it's like, oh, because nobody else knew it was just a bunch of pictures that nobody gives a fuck about, but you could actually use, so it's like, what are the odds like of that lining up to where you could have done that,
Exactly.
Even with, yeah,
it's an unfortunate part, but also getting lucky is a big part of research.
It really is. I mean, you can be the most experienced researcher, historian, whatever you want to call it, whatever field you're in. The concept is the same, and you can go your whole life and never find the one fucking thing you needed. And some people just go, and they get lucky, and then it's like, okay, well, now I can, humans aren't only 5,000 years old. They're more than that, because of this, this, and this. I got lucky. I'm going to publish this. And it's like, things like that are cool. And I guess, yeah, what I'm trying to say is like, it does take, you have to know what you're looking into to be able to recognize that opportunity. Because if you hadn't gotten that far into that subject, you would not have either.
No, I wouldn't have known the little pieces to pick.
Sure. And then you wouldn't have bid on it. You wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of things like that in here that you just you're lucky to find. And then you're like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Well, that's the thing too, is like, and there's certain things like, I know you'd have paid, like, here's the thing. There's certain things that I don't give a fuck about the dollar amount. I'm like, this is mine. I'm going to get it because you have to. And one of those things is, I think I told you about this. Like, I have an original World War I service coat from Bravo Company of the 128th Regiment of the 32nd Division. That's what I was in. Mess sergeant, service coat, handmade, hand stitched, quilt stitched patches. The red arrow. To me, the only reason I found that is because somebody who I was in contact with at the time, who was also a fellow nerd, says, "Hey, did you see this?" That's it. That's the only fucking reason. And it was like a holy grail of like personal history, stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, Jesus, do you want this? He's like, no, I think you would want it though. And I'm like, yeah. So I bid it, and it went for $200.
I had a friend do that. He called. He's like, hey, this auction ends in 5 minutes, but
yeah,
you should buy it because the guy went to LSU. And I look it up, and it's a 1917 Canton and the name written on it. He's an LSU graduate who served in World War I. And it's like $40. I was like, okay, so I bid on it.
It's a no-brainer. Like the dollar amount at that point doesn't matter.
No, but it was only because a friend knew of the position.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like, he did it, with me as well. And I'm like, oh, this is like a holy fucking grail. And it was, so sometimes like with history, like you're saying about, just organically talking to people about things, but it's also like knowing other nerds.
Yeah, the big one for me was finding. So again, my aunt, topic of my dissertation, June 3rd, 1915, the state of Oklahoma celebrated Cora Youngblood Corson Day at the World's Fair. And they gave out pens and little pocket mirrors. So for years I searched, and I got lucky, popped on one morning, and there was one of the pens.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep. And it was expensive. It was like $150, but like it didn't matter.
Yeah. It didn't matter.
Yeah. I had to get it because it's my aunt, and it's important to my, the
there you go. And that's the thing is like, and that happens. The same concept of like material things happens with research in general. It's like when you're going down this rabbit hole, once in a while you get fucking lucky, and it's like, bam, we're going for it. You
want to know one that's really fucking lucky and how you know good research? You'll appreciate this story. So I got a phone call one night from Steven saying, hey, some guy reached out to me. He found this Marine Corps photo at an estate sale. I think I know who it is, but he wants $150 for it. We should get it. So, okay. And he he tells me, I call the guy. He's like, yeah, I'll sell it to you. And so I did. And he said, y'all were, and this again goes with the people person thing.
Yep.
He was like, you guys were just really, really honest about it. And, you paid what I asked. And he said, there was this other guy who found out I had it, and he offered me $150, but since I told you guys first, that's why I wanted to, offer, see if you'd pay his price. And we did, it's fine. And he went back to this other guy and told him, sorry, I sold it to these guys who I talked to first for 150. And he's like, why did you do that? I would have paid you 3 times that much. He's like, well, why didn't you offer me 3 times that much when I asked you for an offer? Anyway, he bought it. The photo's got no name. This is the image. Right? Beautiful Marine. Which I'm writing an article on for Leatherneck, which will be finished next week. But
nice.
No name, no information, and all you can see is he's a Marine in the 5th Regiment, and he's got a Distinguished Service Cross, a French Military Medal, and the Italian War Cross. Like, those are weird for
That's
a Marine.
A weird combo. Yeah,
it is. Yep. And so Steven managed, he went through, and he's a damn good historian, like we've talked about. He goes through the records, and he narrows it down. He's like, only 4 Marines got the Italian War Cross, and the only one that would have had this type of medals has to be this guy, Talbert. And I was like, okay. And I'm always, me, I'm always real iffy on saying something if I can't 100% prove it.
Exactly. Yep.
And so while he was right, this is the most likely scenario of who it is.
Yeah.
I was still on the fence, but I went with it and started doing research. And then sure enough, I found that image in a news article from 1918 or from 1920. It's the exact image with the name. He was right. So
yeah, for sure. But it's now you can back it up. Yeah.
Now I can back it up. But it's that random photo, it came from a random estate of a random guy who heard about Steven from some angle, and he called me, and then Steven, knowing the medals, it's all of those things had to fall into place for this image to show up here, for me to get enough info to be like, holy shit, that's really cool. I need to write an article on this guy.
Yeah.
And now I've written the article. It's a dope story. He ends up with 2 Navy crosses, the Distinguished Service Cross, French Military Medal, Croix de Guerre, and the Italian War Cross. But he gets a Navy Cross in World War I, and then he gets a Navy Cross in Haiti a year.
Damn.
2 years later. Yeah. But he's also the only Marine I think can claim that he fired a bullet that ended a war. Because the second Cacao War in Haiti, Benoit Botcherville was the bandit leader who was leading it. And Albert's the one who fired the bullet into the chest of Benoit Botcherville and killed him. And with his death, the others just scattered, and that was the end of that was the end of the resistance and the end of the war. But he ended it, and then as I found out later, his son joined the Marines, and his son then got the Bronze Star at Saipan, and so his dad had rejoined the service, and his dad got to pin it on him when he got home.
Cool.
But anyway, the story, I mean, he's one hell of a Marine, but it just had to fall, all those things had to fall into place.
Yep. And
to learn
there's a lot of places along that journey where it's it could have just been a dead end.
Yeah, but could have right there, it's a photo, and if you don't know what to do, that's it. It's just a photo.
Exactly. Yep.
You have no idea who it is. But in the right hands, you can determine who it is.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of work, but it's rewarding as shit when you figure, something like that out, because it's it's been lost for how many years, and then bam, now it's not.
And I know we enjoy that. I mean, a lot of us enjoy getting photos as a mystery, and then trying to break it down.
What the hell is going on here? And it's analysis, like you said, it's critical thinking. It's okay, where do we start? And then you go, okay, this,
well, that's the thing. Where do you start? You should always start big, but again, people want to overthink it and they ignore the obvious. But the reality is,
with the
obvious. You know,
well, that's the problem is like because like I'm used to talking with other hardcore nerds,
right?
so we and this can be a detriment too. Like now that I'm thinking about it, like what you've said is like we go for like the extreme micro level shit, and we're going okay, here's this, and then all of a sudden it's like let's zoom in on that. Well, wait a second, because we kind of assume like you were saying earlier is like well, that's just common knowledge. Well, no, it's not necessarily. It's not of like where this is taken. Okay, how do you tell that? That's a big, okay. Well, and then like
there's a photo I have of Marines in puttees, steel helmets. On their uniform with puttees and steel helmets. Where is that photo taken?
Probably in France in 1918.
Right. You go off, have this whole conversation, and people. I'll show you. I can show you that photo, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, that was taken in France, obviously."
Mm-hmm.
No, it was taken in Quantico, Virginia, because they were asked to be extras in the movie The Redeemer. So they filmed Marines on the Quantico training trenches for the background characters of this movie. And this photo was taken during the downtime between filming scenes.
What year?
In 1917.
Yeah, for sure. But like, so what are you trying to prove right here?
So the point is, if I would have given you that photo, right? Let's say it was on a postcard, right? You guys would have looked at it and been like, minute details, obviously. The steel helmets and puttees. That's overseas. That's in France, right?
No, okay. So this one, I'm going to tell you, it's a little bit weak because when you're describing something to me, then I think bigger. Do you have the picture?
It's maybe.
Because if I were looking at the picture, I'd have a different response. Because you said a guy with puttees and a steel helmet, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I know, okay, 1917 to 19 really. And then I would be confident in saying that. As far as the picture is concerned, I think it's a very different analysis when you just describe something with a couple features versus looking at a photo. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it would change my opinion because here's the thing is when we see the picture, I'll break down the micro shit.
Yeah.
Because then I'll be able to tell, oh, it's a movie set because of this.
Well, that's the thing. You wouldn't because it was taken in the trench area. No. I don't have the photo.
You don't have the photo? Okay.
No, but the point I was making was like people would do that. I give them a minute detail and they would go in on it like, oh yeah, here's all these details that show it was taken in France and the typical ones.
Yeah, you could be convinced.
Yeah, but then it'd be like, hey guys, flip it over. What's it say? Postcard.
No, I get that right? too, and
in
it's like
English.
It's what you're told. Like, okay, the whole thing about there's a lot of Mandela effect shit, but like I talk about like Garand thumb, right? Like the whole whatever. And I think that unless you do it on a closed chamber and you're just not thinking you're stressed out, or you do something, but I can't figure out. I made a video on this right years ago, and I got a lot of flack from older people. They're like, "My dad had Garand thumb. He told us about it all the time." And I'm like, yeah, but does that make it true? If you're told something, like you were just saying, this is my point, is like, if you're told something consistently, it becomes truth, but it's not the truth. And it's like things can get like convoluted. Like if you go, okay, this picture, there's a guy wearing puttees and a steel helmet. I'd be like, okay, that's this time period, but what you've already told me is no, it's on a film set and this and that. And so I go into that. If I'm ever going to see the picture, is I go into that knowing that, and I've been told something. Hey, it could have been in France. I don't know, but like when you get steered a certain way to thinking that this is correct or this is, it's just the way it's been, whatever. That's a bitch to fight. Actually, it really is. But yeah, I've noticed that a lot with history, like with myself and other people who I consider historians, is like for many years they're steered in the wrong way by what somebody else who they respect says, like what they say and everything. That's the truth, or that's this, or that's the context, and then
yeah,
it's a
I'm
weird
trying to
thing.
think if I have it somewhere, but like there's a few things that they can catch. But the point was, I've seen people do this where they really have it down, and then it's like, hey guys, it's written in English on the other side.
Right. Yeah, you miss the most obvious detail because you're just going in. Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
and it's like it's that you don't think about it because all the answers are there, but you don't think about the obvious.
Right, and it's like, yeah, that's I don't know how to combat that really.
There's really no way to except slow down. I can find it. Slow down
Yep,
and
slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Yep.
And just really think about every detail. There's one that Steven likes to show. It's the same thing. It's Marines in garrison campaign hats and the canvas leggings, right? And again, that typically shows stateside, right? On the general sense. So if you only have the general knowledge that canvas leggings
exactly. Yep,
and campaign hat equals stateside, but it was actually taken after the 5th Regiment got to France and it was taken on, but you wouldn't know that unless you looked at the minute details and realized it's written on a French postcard.
And that's the thing is I literally, as we're going through that, because I'm like, oh no, like they, because I know the minutia, but I was also overthinking it already, just from what you described, like just overthinking it, like, well, they, here's the thing is, the 5th Regiment actually had 1910 leggings and all that shit. At this point, when they were in France, they were still wearing campaign hats. They ditched them. They got put on their airbags, on the trains and stuff like that. I know that, but it's like, okay, what are we looking at here? The overall thing.
If you don't know that, then you're automatically
that's what I'm saying.
Start from the wrong spot because of what you know.
Exactly.
Confuses you. So it's another these little. It took forever to get my brain to say, okay, we got to look at the much bigger picture before.
Yep, just kind of like be able to have a disconnect between the nerdgasm and reality.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, and it is difficult to do. It really is.
That photo album with the native that I got, like it was all showing photos of him. And so I thought, okay, this album belongs to him because it's photos of him signed to his name. And then I did my research and I'm like, oh, he killed himself in 1925. Right. And then I start going back by those photos and I see there's a couple photos of this like rodeo and there's writing on the on the top of the rodeo. And I zoom in and it says 1932.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, wait a minute. If this guy killed himself in 25, this isn't his photo album. So someone else had to continue these photos after his death. So now I got to rethink everything I thought I knew about it.
Yeah, and that yeah, because you thought you had it all figured out and everything, but it's like that one little thing is like, well, now it's completely different.
Yeah, that one little detail has screwed it up.
Yeah, and you're like, I mean, for a lot of the physical stuff, like it's there, it's fine, and like it's being preserved, it's good for now. But now you're like, well, I have to try to figure out how to explain all this shit that I thought was one way forever, and then how to explain 7 years.
How do you explain this change? Which I think the answer is I noticed some of the photos when I was able to peel back a little. It says San Pablo. It's the name of his brother. So I think his brother continued the photo album. But that's the whole issue. And I do see in the comments someone said, I saw a guy with a Moss and Nagant and fur coat. Yep, it's the Polar Bear Expedition, but it sounds like I'm describing a Cossack, right? He's right. You see these photos, and to go up, double that down, where were they taking their portraits? In Russian studios. So you'll get a photo, a Russian photo, cabinet photo, with a guy wearing a fur coat and holding a Mosin, but it's actually an American who's posing for a photo.
Yeah, and that whole thing, there's just people that have tried to make videos and content on that subject of the people we sent during the anyway, how absurd it is no relevance to this what I'm about to say, but like the And they're like, so why are they carrying Mosins? Well, A, they were made here, and Remington and Westinghouse had to have some excuse to issue some rifles that they had paid to manufacture and didn't get followed through with. And also the ammo and the fucking infrastructure of the Soviets, or the other. Well, yeah, it was the Soviets at that point. And it's like, okay, why? But why is he wearing a fucking 1917 service coat? You know, underneath the shit, we can see the like details like that too, or like, and I guess the micro level shit like that it's still relevant, but it's I guess it's easy to focus on that kind of shit when you're in a mindset of like, oh, I have to figure out exactly where this is from. It's like, no, what
Yeah,
you get that, yeah.
Let's see. I've got a photo. It's my favorite one, right? The minutia of it all, which is a fun one. Maybe you'll have fun with this because I know I've not shown you before. All right, let's see you having your little nerdgasm here.
All right, it's a field kitchen. That is a night. I don't know what kind of rifle that is. It's kind of. Can you zoom in a little bit? Just not that much, but like, yeah, there we go. Okay, good. Yeah. So they're wearing U.S. That guy on the left side of the picture is wearing a U.S. service coat. The campaign hat, obviously with the and I see the patch. Yes, I forgot the number is 3. What?
No, it's an S. It's like a bear with an S.
Yeah, but like what actually was the regiment? They made a regiment, but yeah, he's got
20. You got the what are they? The 27th Infantry.
Yeah, it's a regiment though. That's not. But so he's got his campaign hat on with his little acorn. So that's a blue cord, more than likely. So it's infantry. The guy behind him's they're wearing Yashankas, like the traditional ones. He's got putties on. They have the that one's got the shit kickers on. The one in the back's got
the fur and gloves on.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm looking at the woman on the right.
Oh,
that's a local. That's a civilian. But they've got the field kitchen right there. And it looks like a very urban area because of the architecture. And the time of year is probably spring or fall. Most likely. Because there's like a little bit of snow and like ice on the ground, but it's not like really. So it could be spring or fall. But judging from when the expedition happened, that would be probably the winter of 1917 to 18. And then all right.
But little weird details, right, with this one photo.
Mm-hmm.
To like, why is he wearing a fucking campaign hat?
Yeah, right.
In Russia, who knows? But it's an American.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And we don't know exactly when, but we can kind of pinpoint to as close as possible, like which is a few months, to be honest.
Yeah. And it's those little details that people don't think about.
Yeah.
You really have to. I don't know. Just again, think outside the box. Be
critical. Well, the more you know, too, like the more you know about, because when you and I look at a photo, we look at it differently, right? But combined, we've got twice as much knowledge, literally. I know it sounds stupid, but like, what I'm saying is like, I can go, there's this and that with the uniforms and this change this year, this month, roughly, and whatever. And then you go, but I've, this is where I think this was taken, blah, 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 because of your details that you notice. And also your macro level shit, like the building behind it. Where is that? You could actually pinpoint that probably.
Yeah, you could. And it's like there's Russian on the sign in the background.
I didn't notice that. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it was Russian, right? Yep. So it's like there you have your answers, but people will if you don't look, if you don't force yourself to think, you're not going to be able to spot it.
Well, and also too, like, so to be fair, like this stream, like you put that in front of me for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the
Yeah,
fuck it was.
yeah, but that's the thing. What are your
Yeah.
immediate thoughts? And that's
Your
the
immediate thoughts.
problem.
But then here's the thing: is like, then you have to go back and be able to like, you know. Well, I didn't notice that because I would have probably noticed the Russian sign eventually, you know. But it's like, you know, when I immediately look at the picture, I panic and I just look for micro and I'm like, all right, when was this? You know, roughly when? Who is this? You know,
Yeah.
and whatever. That's just kind of and it's not a great kind of method.
Well, you're right, but one thing is like, so even the macro, you have to go to the full macro, right? So if I show you an image and I say, when was this taken? Again, start the biggest to lowest. The fact that it's a photograph means it's been taken after photography was invented. So we just lowered ourselves to 200 years. And then
about 1840 onward.
All right. Yeah. So now let's say, okay, what type of photo? Well, I give you a postcard, right? We know that these postcards were really only used from around 1900 to 1920. That's the craze of the photo postcards, right? So we just load it to 20 years. And then you start doing the micro details to get down further. But again, even that, people don't think about it. Like, what are you actually holding? Is it a real photo postcard or is it a photograph? And then you can go from there. Like 1920s photographs all have the same weird border on it. They're all very standard. That was the style in the 20s. Yep. You can you're like, that's from the 20s. But people don't think about what they're holding. If you're a historian of technology, you could be like, oh, that's on yada, yada, yada paper. That was only made in 1928 to 1935. But if you don't know that, you don't think about it. Right. So you can go macro, you can go all the way to like literally what you're touching to help you date it. Right. The macro can be all sorts of things. Or it's like Dawn stuff. Right. If we went off the date on when he finally had it fucking printed, the date is 3 years after he took it. Right. So the date doesn't always help you, so you have to do the macros of it and like really try to.
Well, and that's the thing is like we were talking about the other day, like when we were watching that stuff, is like I can tell that it was his first tour because of his uniform and the other people's like the body language, like what was actually built up, all that stuff, versus the second tour that he was on. Because I know, okay, well, this changed in a very short amount of time, but it changed it, you know. I mean, obviously, the longer time passes, the more that kind of expands. But like, again, we're still like, Don could be my grandfather as far as his age, right? Not that far back, but I'm able to, you know, look at history, recent history, talk to people who were actually involved, and then we can both. Okay, this is a 2-year difference.
And as long as you get close, that's what matters.
Yeah, and you know, it's not perfect. I mean, nothing's perfect as far as histories go. You know, like if you're looking at 3,000 years ago versus 30 years ago, you're still going to have things that you can't figure it out, right? There's just things that you can't. You know, you can guess, but like, and but it's just trying to get as close as possible and explaining why and how you got to that point.
Yeah, you can be off. I tell people like in a museum, I don't use the word circa unless I'm within like 10 years. Like circa 1970. Like it's somewhere within this period. I can't get you any more detail, but I can tell you it's close. Right. You have to, as long as you can get down, you start big and go more specific. It's the best way to do it because then you're going to cover all your bases. But you have to train yourself to really think about that.
For sure. And it's like I'm sorry, I'm just like I do this in normal life. Like I'm just thinking like, you know, and I guess the reason that I've been drawn to history is because of everything we're talking about. There's so many things that go into it. Besides just watching a movie, like that can inspire you, yes, and that's fine. Like I get that. I've ripped on movies because of the fact that I'm at a different level. Not like bragging, but I'm saying like I view things at a different level. But no, it's cool, and I think history is it's one of those like cool guy things, you know, like if you spew some historical facts at a party when you're feeling awkward or whatever, it's considered like, oh, it's interesting, you know, it's cool. But to actually do a deep dive into history or anything historical, it's a different animal. It's a discipline. It really is. And not everybody's cut out for it. I'm not, for the most part, I'm not cut out for it because I get to a point and I'm like, fuck it. Why am I doing this? And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, it doesn't matter. But then you'll come back to it, you know, weeks, months, years later, and you go, oh, wait, it does matter because of this, this, and this. And that's kind of why, because it's not like, I don't know how to like put it into words, but like, it's not like a consistent everyday kind of, routine, or what the hell is the word I'm looking for? Now it's like a more fancy word for routine, but it's like it's not an everyday, like you can't just, it's not, you never know what to expect. And that's the thing is like it's very inconsistent, and then you get the highs, the lows of like going through a topic and, you know, researching, figuring out things, but it's always very inconsistent. And then when you're able to explain it in a way and like write it down like you have multiple times, whether it's an article or a book or whatever, that's a fulfilling thing, because then you know that people after you are going to be able to read that and go, okay, oh, that makes sense, you know?
Right.
And, but yeah, it's very, I think it's very just, it's not taken as seriously because it's kind of the cool thing, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just always got like pissed off, like going to places and hearing people talk about surface level shit and like in authority and like they're cool because they know this. It's like, well, that's not what history is, in my opinion, because I know historians and it's a shitload of work for years, decades on one tiny thing. And I mean, it's cool. I'm not like bad mouthing people who just kind of, you know things and regurgitate them, but like there comes a point where I'm just like, what are you doing?
All right, here I got one for you. All right, this one's one of my favorites because I've never been able to solve it.
Was this a puzzle or a picture?
Picture.
Okay. Same thing. All right. So it's kind of fuzzy. All right. So he's holding a Mauser rifle, wearing a 17 service coat because it's a little bit more rough cut. 5 buttons. Yeah, checks out. Collar discs. Overseas cap. That rifle doesn't look American to me. He's got his putties. The backdrop is typical for that time period. Like it's just a photo studio. He's got the, I can't tell. Can you zoom in a little bit on the metal? Like, I mean, it's gonna be grainy and shit, but it's got a clasp on it. It looks like it's the photo. That looks like a World War I victory medal. Okay, and then so go to the rifle itself. That's a Mauser. That's a fucking, go up to the front sight, like on the top of the photo. Okay, zoom out. That's a Mauser rifle. That's not a fucking 03 or a 1917. That's just that's the photo being blurry, right? That's just US.
Yeah, he moved.
Yeah. Can you go to his left sleeve? So on the right side of the picture. I just want to see if there's anything. Okay, yeah. Go up above the metal really quick. He's wearing a clasp of some sort. Yeah, like a ribbon rack, but there's no rib. No, like that right there. That's weird. There's something attached to his uniform, but I don't know what the fuck that is.
Based on this, what you're seeing, when and where?
When 1917 to 19. Where could be France or no? Hold on. Can you zoom in a little bit on that backdrop really quick? Go up. Okay, yeah, it just looks like. Where?
Macro level shit.
Yeah, I would say France and Germany, 1918 and 19. Actually.
Okay.
Yep.
And if I told you it's in English,
So it's in the States, and that's. I'm really bad at reading handwriting like this. Oh, wait a second. That's not postcard. Armenia. Am I reading that correctly?
so that language, I don't know what it is. People thought it was Farsi, but no one's been able to decipher it.
No, it's not Farsi.
Baba Ulazes, Gulazes, of village, Sharabad, Persia, and then I don't know, something.
Whatever, yeah. So it's Persia. Okay, go back to the other side. Huh. He's wearing a U.S. uniform from top to bottom. His rifle's not American. It looks like a. I mean, it's a Mauser rifle. I just don't know exactly what variant it is.
So
it's a carbine. Or
my
it's a
best guess
rifle.
is it was taken in 1919 because he's got a medal on. Mm-hmm. And he obviously is wearing the overseas kit, so he went overseas at some point, and he came back to the States because it's an American postcard and posed in an American portrait studio, and the only prop they had is a Mauser. So he's posing with the Mauser. But he obviously is American. It was taken in the United States. And the back would mean that he's obviously Persian. So he's a Persian soldier that served in the AEF. And this photo was taken when he got back. But no idea. I've tried to do the name, nothing.
Yeah, that's a language that, like, I mean, or a written form of language that I just have never seen before. It's not Persian. It's not Farsi. No. It's kind of like, I would say like something like Yiddish, where it's a combination of a couple languages, because it's like that. That's weird. But yeah, this guy, so he was in the First World War.
In the AEF.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was American. But I'm like, the rifle is like a. Can you zoom in on the rifle one more time? I'm sorry to do this, but like, zoom in on the rifle itself, like the yeah, just right there. You get the whole thing in frame. It's a short ring Mauser action. Is that a Spanish fucking? Zoom out a bit. Go up. It might be a fucking Spanish 1916 carbine, if he hadn't moved, of course, because it's blurry. But like but yeah, it's definitely a prop. It's not like a rifle like he would have been familiar with. Like, interesting. And also, if that's correct, if that's a short rifle, like a 1916 short rifle, I can tell approximately how tall he probably is, or was rather. Yeah, he's probably about if that's a short rifle, he's probably about 5'6", 5'7", just by that. But why the Armenian thing? Or
so that's just it.
Yeah.
The idea can be that it's it's an AEF soldier who is apparently Persian, an immigrant, and sent home to his family. I just haven't been able to figure out who he is.
Yeah, like that's again, it's very like for the micro level shit, it's very easy for me to like. But again, it's like
it got you at the front because the micro level shit would have put it probably in France or Germany because of the Mauser and the Pooties and the Garrison cap and
right. And then I had a few more minutes and I was like, wait a second, that's not a German Mauser. It doesn't
right, but it's even then it's like, well, France or Germany, but it's actually taken in the United States.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yep.
You know, it's that macro level shit you got to really do, and you catch it all the time with people they'll say something. Well, this is this, and then you're like, wait a minute, you forgot like the most glaring thing. Right. Because they don't think on the macro, they just think the micro.
Well, I'm very guilty of it. Like it's like sometimes I do a little bit better than not, but like sometimes I'm just like I just focus on like things that they're still relevant. That's the thing is like I'm not doing anything wrong as far as like the overall picture, but it's like as far as the method and the formula for trying to figure something out, that's a little bit convoluted. But like as far as like me noticing micro shit, that's fine because, you know, I think we've done a lot of photo analyses of you know, just you and I and maybe a couple other people, like where you don't notice something or then you'll point something out that we didn't notice. It's like that's cool about the micro shit, but yeah, like you're saying the macro, I have a very big problem, like not a problem like ethically or morally, but like I just have a thing where I don't really take the time to look at the macro as much as it probably should be looked at.
Yeah. And that's just part of it is trying to reteach yourself to think more critically on, oh, this is a different angle I should look at. This is where I need to go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, here's the thing is there's people who I've talked to and I interact with on the internet or in real life. I don't think they're really stupid people. I don't think that at all. It's just the way they'll think about certain topics and like approach them. It's like it's not that it's different from mine and that, you know, it's okay. It's like, well, think about it this way. How about that? Okay. And they go, oh, yeah, you know, again, like you're saying to me, and I agree with 100%, is like, just take a step back and fucking figure out this before this, you know, and yeah, it's cool. That's why I still talk to these people because, you know, you might notice this whole thing and be fixated on that too. That's the problem too that I get down on, like, is I'll get fucking focused on one thing. And that's what prevents, you know, me from being able to like figure out the other things that are going on.
Yeah, exactly.
With that topic. And it's like, you're like, I'm gonna fucking hone in on this and focus on this. Well, yeah, but it's a part of what the whole topic is. And then you know, that's also it's a habit that I see a lot of people doing when they're talking about history, is like they'll just focus on just one viewpoint on one subject. And they'll present it as like, this is because I heard this from whatever. It's kind of a confirmation bias thing. That's also an issue, is just because, you know, you want to feel like you're right. You know, you want to feel like you're correct and your work is good. That's not necessarily always true.
And there's a friend of ours who has this issue. I won't drag him out, but sometimes he sees something, a photo, and he's like, "Oh, that's da-da-da-da-da," and it's like he's just using what he assumes he knows to give you a definite answer. But then when you do the research, you're like, no, that doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It can't work. You know, where it's like, he'll be like, oh, that was on this, this, and this. I'm like, that's not even a true statement. Like, it doesn't work at all. you just took your best guess, but the reality is you're forgetting like some glaring things here.
Well, also it is like confirmation bias. You want to believe it's true. And it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes when it's not.
Yeah.
And
it's like, no, that's not what you thought because, this, this, and this. Like, that photo was taken at Soissons. It's like, I just checked the muster roll. He was sick and missed that battle. So,
sure, yeah.
Your best bet's out. And then it turns out, he took that photo after the war when he went back,
Yeah,
and I've got photos of Blancmont, right, and all the devastation of the battlefield, and so you'd be like, "Oh, that was taken at Blancmont," and then it's like, did you not notice that the second photo in this album shows him also at that spot, but like he's wearing a patch, which means it was taken after February of 1919.
Yeah.
It's like, but you didn't look at that. You looked at this and just made the assumption.
And here's the thing: is
looked at another photo to see like.
Here's the thing too with history. I don't want to discourage people. Is that is going to happen?
It is.
It's not a matter of like, I'm better than that or whatever. It's not what I'm saying. Is like the whole point is it's going to happen, and that can hinder your progress on researching anything. And everybody has that built in, and that's fine. But as long as you can recognize it, especially at certain times when you're like actually going deep into something and you've got those breaks, you've got all that shit that just worked out, you still are capable of having that confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm. You got to cross-reference. That's the only way to do stuff is cross-reference.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is people cross-reference all the time, and they still are convinced one way, and they'll convolute that, and they'll mess the words around, and like. So it's the same thing, and I've seen that a lot. You've seen that too, obviously.
Oh yeah,
and it's like, these are with very esteemed people, very esteemed, whatever field they're in, but they're very people know who they are. I'm not gonna drag anybody because I do the same shit. You do the same shit. It's a matter of being able to like.
I remember one I fucked up. It was a photo album. We were trying to identify who it belonged to, and we couldn't figure it out. And I was searching through this album, looking out every detail of this person, like who is it? And so I was so focused on the war photos that we couldn't figure it out. I even took one of them out, like tried to scrape the glue off the back, almost got a name, but couldn't get it. And then my buddy calls me back. He's like, "Hey, I figured it out." I was like, "How'd you do it?" He's like, "I flipped to the back of the photo album and there was a picture in a cemetery. They were taking a photo with the grave. So I just used the name on the gravestone, and then sure enough, I figured out the family and worked from there." Yeah. But like, I was so dead set on figuring out the war photos. I didn't think about the photos taken after the war.
Yeah, exactly.
In the photo album
to like help with the investigation. Yeah.
But I had blinders on to figure it out. And that's the
thing. But like confirmation bias is, I think, more egregious than just being focused on one thing. Because confirmation bias is why we have a lot of the issues we do in not just in history, but in politics and just life in general. Is like if you want something to be true and you claim it is, even though it's probably not, there's going to be a problem there, and it's, again, as long as you can identify it, you don't have to be the best in the world at it because everybody's does it to an extent, but like, just acknowledge that just because you want something to be a certain way doesn't mean that it is or was.
Had a good case of that. Another friend got a photo album. He saw the photo album, saw the photo of the Marine, and he's like, "Holy shit, that's him." Put it online. Look, this is so-and-so. I got my hands on the photo album. There were no names. So I cut it out of the photo album, flipped it over, had the name of somebody else. Turned out it was his friend and not him. And I found a photo later of the guy that owned and it's like, this is the right guy. You had the wrong one. But the confirmation bias was, it's so-and-so's photo album. This is a photo of a Marine. This has to be so-and-so.
Right. And then when your mind is made up, it's like,
and like, nope, that's not him. That's not him at all. So you just,
right. But yeah, it's And I've noticed that a lot in like academia and even in the STEM fields nowadays. Is like people, and it's been this way for a long time. It's not new, but like people don't want to be wrong ever, and they'll defend the fact that they're correct until they die, but it doesn't mean they're correct.
Right.
And that's, you know what I mean? And that can be very harmful, whether it's but as something as benign as like, oh, I'm researching this one person who lived in bumfuck Wisconsin for, you know, from this date to this date, or it's like, no, this is how the US interacted in World War II and how they were involved, blah blah. It doesn't matter. It's like if you say, if you are convinced yourself that it was this way, and then you tell other people that, and that's just how it goes. I don't like that. And not being open for debate either. Like that, that's something that I've noticed with a lot of people, and I'm glad I'm not in that sphere, but like, no, I don't need to debate you because I know what I'm saying is right. Well, then have the debate. It should be easy then, right?
Yeah.
But no, again, like history is a very multidisciplinary discipline. Not to sound redundant, but like it really, like we were talking about that the other night, is like you to know even just one aspect of history, you have to know about 7 or 8 others that directly impact the topic that you're going into to do research. And so you know, if you're a military historian, you have to know political history, you have to know social history, technological history, all this shit, economic, like, you know, financial stuff like that. You have to know all that to be able to like figure out, okay, how did everything impact each other, you know? And that's the thing too, is people are like, oh, I'm a military historian, they know about guns, you know, which is fine, but that's good. I'm like, okay, so what else do you know about the guns?
I had a guy do that. He came up to me with a shell, and he's like, yeah, the guy I traded it to said he pulled it out of Lake Pontchartrain, and you know, it's probably from the Civil War. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's brass, and there's no fuse, and it's in perfect condition. This was not sitting in salt water. Like, this is some bronze casting of something, of like a short barrel, like, I don't know, tiny little gun. But I'm like, this is not what you think it is. Like, I don't know anything about guns or the Civil War era, but I can tell you for a fact what you have is a bronze casting of something, because you can't even use this.
Because here's the thing, is you have to know all that shit. Even if it's just basic level stuff, you have to know that stuff to be able to cross-reference everything. And
yeah,
you know, and you know what I mean.
You gotta know what you don't know.
That's why you knew that, though, is because you had to learn it at a certain point, because it came across in something else that you were looking at, and like, oh, we had, you know, 6-pounders, we didn't have, you know, 12-pounders at this battle. You know, okay, well, that's relevant, because then you go, oh, so a 6-pounder is about that big of a ball, and a 12-pounder is this big, and so I know that even though it's not what I focus on regularly, you can still be able to go, well, here's why, and also twists on barrels, which
I've got 2 cannons on campus, and the story is that Sherman donated them to the university, and they were from the ships that fired upon Fort Sumter. Or they came from Fort Sumter, one of those. Right? That's been the story for 100 years. And I went over there to check them out, and then I looked at them, and I was like, did anyone notice that the date is 1861? Like, after the Battle of Fort Sumter?
Yeah.
Like, why are you still perpetuating this when the date is on the barrel? You know, that was an obvious fix, but they had just gone with the story for so long.
Well, and to be clear, like the point I was just saying is like that's a great example, because you're not necessarily a firearms aficionado and like nerd, you know. But the fact that you're like, yeah, well, I do know that on most casings since the Industrial Revolution started, are going to be marked.
Yeah, they're going to have a date. And I'm like, it's right fucking here. And they're like,
and it doesn't
no,
mean
you're
like,
wrong.
you're like,
I'm
well,
like, it's on it.
This was for this gun or whatever. That doesn't matter. You just go, no, give me that. Okay. No, 1861?
The date's right there. Guys, the story doesn't matter.
So you're a firearms expert? No, I'm a fucking, I can read. I can read numbers. And I know that, yeah.
It says it right there.
Right? And it's clear as day. Like, it's funny that you mentioned that because one of my friends, I was to play with him. He just sent me a random picture today. He goes to like a lot of auctions and estate sales and stuff. And he's like, I like cast brass things. And he was in the military and all that shit, obviously. Mm-hmm. And he goes, is this what it, like, is this worth this much? He didn't ask me about details. He's like, is it worth $20? And I said, yes, I would say it's worth $20. And so we get back, or I get back to the house and I go on, like, look on the computer, so it's a little bit bigger, and I go, oh, if you didn't notice this, it was dated 1916, and it's probably British because it's got Roman numerals on it with the design and everything. I'm like, I don't know what caliber it's for, what the fuck it was, but like it's probably British and it's from 1916. He goes, yep, got that. He goes, it's still a really cool piece. He doesn't know shit about it, but he can still read 1916. It's right there. It's like,
it's just one of those details. Like, I didn't need to be a genius to.
No, yeah,
it's one of those macro things that, don't take anything at face value. Even a story that has been told over and over and over for 100 years. It
exactly.
Work. Yep. The story can always be wrong.
It can always be wrong, and that's the thing too that people. That's what I was kind of saying earlier a little bit about, especially academics and people in STEM research fields. They don't ever want to admit that they probably missed something and they're not totally correct.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's just a simple mistake can lead to, or if your entire, okay, so this is a good story. I heard it at a conference, and it was some Native American professors were discussing the need to like ask the people that you're doing the research about. And so he was talking about, he got invited to the Smithsonian or to Oxford, and Oxford was taking him to their collection where they had artifacts from his tribe. And they opened up this box and said, we don't know what these are. And he's like, I know what that is. That's a turkey call. And they're like, what? And he's like, yeah, we still use these. Like, we still make them the exact same way. Mm-hmm. And they're like, he said, they looked at him and was like, you're kidding. And he's like, no, this is, and he showed him a photo. He's like, this is exactly what this is. Yeah, we use them. Sure. They looked at him and said, a girl just finished her dissertation on this using the thing they had classified it. She had wrote her whole paper about this thing, classifying it as something else. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out it's not that at all. They just didn't know it. So he was like, I don't know what to tell you, but that's not a fucking like, right. That's not this. That's a turkey.
Yeah.
You're wrong. And that poor girl had just written an entire PhD dissertation on the wrong premise.
And that's why, like, I kind of...
Her research was sound.
No, but it's
on like, the wrong thing.
Yes, and that can happen. And it's like, it's not her fault. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't put that totally on her.
I would have said she should have fucking, like, gone that step and located someone in the tribe to confirm it.
Sure, yes. And it's like, but also, a dissertation, a PhD dissertation, there are people there who are mentoring you and helping you through the process. And
trust me, I know what PhDs can really do to people.
That's what I'm saying is it's like, okay, so all those people who were overseeing this and encouraging it are just as much to blame.
Yeah, all of them are. And it's like that. He thought it was hilarious, but when he told us that, I'm like, that really goes to show, like,
exactly.
Just because everyone knows it doesn't mean you shouldn't question it.
But the thing is, questioning things, like, I used to not question a lot. I was just like, that's the way it is. So this is how I know this. This is how I've come to this. Is like, I used to just take everything at face value and like, well, that's what they said. They're the accreditations and everything from whatever, or they're coming from a position
I trusted
of authority.
Mastriano with a PhD in a book from a university press, and I shouldn't have.
Right, and that's Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's not a bad thing to question things. That's the thing.
Yeah.
There comes a point where you're like, okay, air isn't real. I'm like, okay, well, you can question that, but like, my God, but like, my point is like, when you question other people's work, it should not be taken as a personal insult.
Right. I've always gone off what my old boss used to tell me: trust, but double
verify.
check. Yeah,
Yeah,
trust but
yeah.
verified. Trust but
Reagan
double
also
check.
said that.
Yeah, that's key. I trust what you're saying, but like, I'm gonna also do my own research to make sure that I'm starting from solid ground.
And one cool thing that Joe Rogan says on his podcast, when some people are going off and kind of like he's being introduced to new ideas, he goes, I believe you believe that. I just don't know. I believe that you believe that. And that's where we go. But like, that can get you into a lot of trouble. But like, yeah, I mean, if you say something, I go, okay, and I'll question it, whatever. And you go, well, here's my basis of why I think this way. That's one thing. And I can disagree with your sources. I can disagree with your whole fucking everything you say because I question it. But like, it's like at a certain point, I don't know when it started or if it's over, but like, people in positions of authority, quote unquote, who are accredited and whatnot, they got a free pass. Like, nobody really questioned a lot of things, and that's where a lot of things got convoluted. And I have a problem with that because it's like, well, if nobody's ever being questioned, how do you actually get the closest thing to what went down? Like, and well, you can't question me because I have this degree. I wrote this. I wrote that. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't mean you're correct. It means that's what you believe. And if I question you, you take it as a fucking personal insult. And you want to try and ruin my life, which is weird because like for a long time it wasn't really questioned, and then when it started to be questioned, it's like, well, I'm going to ruin your life now, instead of just saying go fuck yourself or whatever. It's like, oh no, you're coming after me for this reason. It becomes personal. I'm like, well, but you're missing, again, like you were talking about, the macro level of shit. Like, what are we trying to figure out here?
What's the purpose of this? Why don't we just solve it real quick? Like, you're not
if I have a
wrong
question, it's
fully.
like, well, then let's work together.
Yeah.
You're
not fully wrong. You're just partially wrong.
And here's why I think that. And then either, the egomaniacal people will be like, oh, well, there's a personal check, and then do the thing that I just said. Or else some people, which I've noticed in my personal life, is like, they'll go, well, what the fuck? Why would you say that? Why would you think that? And then all of a sudden they go, because of this, this, and this. And they start going, oh, well, that might not actually be how it was. And they work together, and then, all that shit. But like, it's history in itself is fun. And
well, I think we should keep going with this series. I'm about to call it, but we should keep going with this series of material as we pull with the history stuff. So
yeah, and it's like people in the comments too are, pretty liking this. So, and really quick, I hadn't pulled the comments up. I had this thing full screen. Let me just really quickly.
Yeah, I was watching them. I saw Justin's about Assyrian, so that's pretty cool.
It's not 98 AZ because it doesn't have the stacking loop that I can see, and the front band is wrong. So it's not. I don't think it was an AZ. I think it looked like a freaking 1916 Spanish Mauser on that Armenian guy that we think, a Persian guy. If it's a Mauser, I think it was a prop. Yeah. So yeah, okay. And Assyrians, Mike and James just got back from Omaha. Check out Big Boy. Actually, don't know what that is. Big Boy.
The trains. Omaha. Well, hang on. Just got back from Omaha. Those are trains.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know much about. I mean, obviously it's kind of like that thing. I just don't know a lot about trains.
And same.
All that stuff.
Okay.
But no, I respect it. But okay, cool. So Big Boy, and then Choice
they're both
Burger.
Large trains. Just the idea that you didn't know. Okay. Well.
What?
They're big fucking trains.
Oh yeah. I didn't.
Yeah, I have no idea.
So, all right, cool. Thanks everyone for tuning in as usual. No, it's good. It's good talk because like we were saying, like the whole point of this is like we've been talking about this just off the off the air, and it's like, well, why don't we tell other people how to do history better?
Yeah.
We always bitch about it. We always bitch about like, or I always bitch about just people that like go it's surface level shit, like I was just bitching about earlier, and then it's like, well, if you're not providing a solution,
yeah.
So now we're providing a solution, and you can honestly, you're getting a free college course here.
Pretty much.
It is. That's what it is, and I mean, we should, we'll get a little bit better about like having content of like, like tonight was good because it was like, photo analysis and all that shit.
Impromptu, yeah.
Yeah, it's very impromptu, and yeah, we can get some more cool shit lined up and go through like just thinking about things differently than because it's a good exercise for me too.
Absolutely. Well, then let's plan out for another one. But I appreciate it.
Yep. All right, cool guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next stream. What's this keyword, James? If they're watching Exposa Facto.
Keyword for this public relations.
Public relations in the comment section. That way we'll know if you lasted. Gee, every time we talk, it's like I think we're talking for like 10 minutes and we're over 2.5 hours. Holy shit. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so public relations is the keyword, and thank you. We'll see you next time.